Good afternoon, everybody. I warmly welcome you to this panel. We will get to know two super exciting startups with Calingo and Spacewise. They both tapped into well-established industries and disrupted them with their own innovative solution and products. But before we explore their journeys together, I introduce myself. I'm Elias Luminati from ZKB. I'm part of the startup finance team. And here we have some numbers from what we do. We are one of the most active early stage VC investors in Switzerland. We deploy between 20 to 25 millions a year into the ecosystem. And we are an early stage investor. Our range from the ticket size is between 200K up to 1.5 million. We don't have any sector limitation, and we are also able to do follow-on investments. And the focus of our investments in Switzerland, so we only are allowed to invest in Switzerland. On the right-hand side, you can see a few numbers. Since we are in the business, we started 2005 to invest in startups in Switzerland, and since then we have invested over 250 million Swiss francs into around 300 startups, and yearly this results in 40 to 50 financing rounds. And we helped as well to create over 3,600 jobs. That's us in a nutshell. If you want to get to know us a little bit better, we have a booth downstairs in the main hall, and you are welcome to visit us there. And I'm really happy that Anina and Khalid, that you join us here today on stage. And to start, can you maybe explain in 2 to 3 sentences what your startup is doing, that we get an idea? Maybe Anina, you first.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. We're so happy to be here again. 2 to 3 sentences, always not too easy. I try to keep it short. I'm Anina Lutz. I'm CEO and co-founder of Calingo Insurance. We're a Zurich-based insurance startup focusing and offering pet health insurance, which is something that's not really known in the Swiss market, even though Swiss people normally have insurance for everything. We don't have insurance for our dogs and cats, which is what we offer. We achieve strong growth rates. It's a big market, 2.5 million dogs and cats. Almost every other household owns a pet, and we have about 6% of market penetration, so huge potential from the market side. And also we try to focus on innovative new sales channels. We don't go the traditional way with agents. We focus on B2B2C market and sales channels. I can elaborate a little bit more on that later, which is also, I think, one of our key success factors. So happy to be here, thanks.
Thank you very much. So maybe another question on this regard. Before you start this company, you were working at a big Swiss insurance company. And how did you start, or what was the event that you said, okay, I want to start my own venture?
Besides, I think everyone knows from the traditional incumbents, financial industry, it's not the most innovative industries. But what really stuck with me was when we started with Calingo and in our early stages trying to get market feedback, trying to find a good product market fit. We went out there into the streets and surveyed people for their insights for a good product market fit in the before market launch. And everyone was like, yeah, of course, you're a startup, we have 2 minutes, what is it about? And then when we started, we're an insurance startup, everyone immediately turned away because they were afraid that we were selling them or trying to sell them something. And that really stuck with me because it shows the big issue we have with trust in the insurance industry. And that is something I have seen before with the sales incentives, rewarding agents for selling more and not helping customers find the right products, the right coverage, what they really need. And I think there is a big mismatch resulting in a lack of trust in the industry. Which I find really sad because insurance is in fact something really nice because it gives you peace of mind. And that's something we lost a bit in the industry. And we founders made the same experiences. There is a lot to improve, a lot to modernize, and we wanted to do that. And then we decided to found Calingo.
Okay, thank you. And at one point, but when you were there and this bothered you within the big insurance company, what you had to say, okay, now I stop working for this company, I had to quit the job. What was there the reason on what in the timeline, when was it, when you said, okay, now we stop and we go all in with Calingo?
Yeah, that was not too easy. In fact, I just like a year ago, before the opportunity with Calingo came along, I took over a team. My career at Helvetia with incumbent was set, and then I met my two co-founders long before, but we got together and made the same experiences. And then there was the idea to do something on our own. And then I decided quite quickly, I would say, because it felt like it's once in a lifetime. You have a chance to do something like this. Maybe not anymore in the future, I don't know. I was at Helvetia already 8 years at that time. And then I really decided quite quickly to quit. I did finish my project. I didn't leave everything behind for the team. And I think I stayed almost 5 or 6 months before we really started with Calingo. But I quit as the other ones, and then we started with Calingo, but after working at Helvetia, of course.
So it was not a parallel progress where you started already there? And
no. Our jobs at Helvetia wouldn't allow that, I think. We were already quite busy at our former jobs. And what I also find, when you want to start a startup, you can't do that as a side project. That's not working. You can, of course, meet on Sundays or Saturdays and discuss ideas, but that's not how a startup is founded. I think you need like full-on focus and 100% of your time. And then we did like a clear cut and then founded Calingo.
Do you see that differently? Or
slightly.
Yeah?
I think it's fair to explore, to speak with potential clients, etc. Do that on like your free time, on the weekend, whatever. And when you have sufficient evidence, then you jump in. I mean, you can do it this way, like what you described, but I guess depending on the business you're in, you might then have a very hard 6 to 12 months initially if you haven't explored the opportunity sufficiently, or if you haven't had the chance. I mean, you are from the insurance industry, so you obviously have a lot of insights, but if someone is like just excited about the subject, but they're like, I'm convinced this will work. And then if they would just speak with 10 potential clients and everyone would say, nah, we don't have that problem, or that's not relevant, they would save probably a lot of hassle and pain.
Absolutely.
So maybe to stay one more minute with Calingo to understand maybe for everybody in the room, what is exactly your business model, and in what sense does it align with the industry standards, and where does it deviate from them?
Yeah, it aligns with like all the regulatory requirements we have to fulfill. Customers pay premiums and they get coverage, so they get refunded when, in our case, hand in a vet invoice. So that's like quite basic. Where we are different is our sales strategy. As I mentioned, we don't rely on the traditional sales channels like agents. We go for performance marketing, meta ads, Google ads, SEO, SEA, and also B2B2C sales channels. So we try to integrate our insurance products wherever the need for insurance occurs. In the pet insurance case, that's, for example, at the vet. You get your new puppy, you get it vaccinated at the vet, and then the vet is your trust person. You ask them whether they can recommend an insurance, or what do I need to do besides getting the pet vaccinated. And then the vet, they can recommend Calingo. So that's, for example, where we integrate ourselves into the tradition, or into let's say, the initial like customer journey for the end customer, and that's never insurance. It is, I get a new puppy, I have to keep it healthy, and then we try to put our insurance products into those customer journeys. Or, for example, the breeder himself, he can give away a freemium of the Calingo insurance for 1 month. And after that month, the customer can decide, the new pet owners, they can decide whether they want to prolong and buy the insurance with Calingo. And there we have, for example, a conversion rate of up to 40%, which really shows that if you put insurance into the right momentum, right touch point, insurance can be sold quite easily. And I think that's something we do quite differently than having an agent coming to your home, overselling insurance products in your kitchen table and not wanting to leave before you sign the contract. And I think that's one of our biggest Differences, of course, fully digital, no signature, real time, no waiting. Try to be fair, monthly cancellation policy, not 5 years contracts, what we see with the incumbents, like it's those things.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Now we give the word to you, because we don't know anything about SpaceWise. Maybe you tell us what you do for a living. What?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Khaled. I'm the founder and CEO of SpaceWise. Formerly educated a lawyer, but I've always been in the digital economy one way or another over the last 25 years. So SpaceWise is actually my third company. I had the first e-commerce shop for tailor-made suits and shirts roughly 20 years ago, which was also the trigger for SpaceWise. And then I had a web agency, and in between I finished my studies, but also worked at some large organizations like some of your competitors, like UBS. And so, yeah, SpaceWise is a software company. We work with commercial real estate players in Switzerland. This is Migros, Coop, Swisspost, Wincasa, and we help them to monetize any space. And the vision behind that is really that we want to make the physical channel as accessible and as predictable as the online channel. What does that mean? If I'm a consumer brand, if I'm any business that wants to connect with consumers, customers in the real world, then the hurdles to do that were very high in the, again, traditional business model of commercial real estate. For example, if I would wanted to rent a shop or rent any other physical space, I would normally encounter 10, 15, 20-year contracts that I had to sign to get access to that type of space. And we basically enable to make that much more flexible. And that's also the industry trend, basically, that even the large players are not willing to sign long-term deals anymore. And on the other hand, as a landlord who has been running the same business model for centuries in some cases, I need to suddenly adjust to the new market environment. I need to be much faster. I need to digitize the way I work. And that's the gap that we're closing, effectively. So imagine what hotels did 25 years ago when Hilton started to put up their own online booking platform and also market through Booking.com and similar. We have built the same white label solution basically for Swisspost or Coop or Migros in Switzerland, or also some clients in the US, to start doing e-commerce effectively as big commercial real estate companies.
Mm-hmm. So before you did some different stuff, and then you tapped into this market, which is actually by the big players like TX Group or Swiss Marketplace Group.
A funny thing that often comes up, right? That people say, there is HomeGate and ImmoScout. In each market, you're right, there's normally one or two big players by now of these online classifieds marketplaces. And I was fortunate enough in Switzerland to work with a lot of them, so get deep inside how they function. So actually, when I was at UBS, I did digital partnerships, and a lot of the tools you can use on HomeGate, for example, are actually UBS power tools in the background that we integrated. But what I learned is residential is their bread and butter. They don't care as much about commercial real estate, although commercial real estate in every market is the second biggest asset class next to residential real estate. But even there, it's mainly office. And everything else in terms of commercial real estate is a total sideshow. That's one thing. The other thing is, back in 2018, I had the opportunity to present to a room full of CEOs of classifieds marketplaces, from South Africa to Finland to Mexico, wherever. And I chose the topic of end-to-end integration, where I said, if you run a classifieds marketplace, why don't you facilitate the sale? Why don't you help them with insurance, etc.? And you know what they said? Why should we? Our business model gives us a margin of 80%. Why should we hassle? Why should we care? I was like, okay. Their mindset is clearly set, because what they have been doing since, I would say, the mid-90s, early 2000s, is selling ad space, like back in the day in the newspaper. So they are very far away from an end-to-end integration. And in terms of white label solution, etc., what we're doing on an enterprise level, they couldn't provide that, and they're not set up in a way to cater to this kind of customer. Because for them, it's about volume. Mm-hmm. And also what they deliver to the client, the value, is leads. Pure leads, of which Many of them are not necessarily high quality. In our case, on some of our platforms, we have conversion rates somewhere 30, 50, up to 70%. So what we actually bring to our customer converts into actual business, and is not just noise in their inbox, basically. Which for classifieds marketplaces, unfortunately, this is still the main metric, that it's all about volume, just so the client basically gets a dopamine hit of having a full inbox, but there's not necessarily a deal in the 10 or 20 or 100 leads that they're getting. So yeah, short answer, from a classifieds marketplace point of view, there is little risk for us. I think there's other, let's say, potential competitors or peers in the market that we need to closely watch. I think classifieds marketplaces are, for us, more of potential partners and collaborators in terms of broadening our reach.
Okay, so they're not classical your opponents, let's put it that way.
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
Do you feel the same within your industry?
In fact, absolutely. In a way, there are competitors, but since we do have, on the one hand side, risk carriers in the background who back our insurance policies, because we're not having the FINMA license, so we have collaborators on the risk carrier side with insurance companies, but also on the sales side, because most insurance companies, they don't offer a pet insurance, and they know how hard it is to develop and bring to market a new product in the insurance companies. They collaborate with us since we offer a white label solution. So we do have a lot of, for example, health insurance companies, but also insurance companies selling our product in a white label.
Okay, I understand. So you don't feel them often as a competitor, more like you are an additional point in the whole ecosystem where you can add your value.
I think in our case, it's even that we're enabling deals that in the past did simply not happen. I'll give you an example. Swiss Post uses our platform to basically power any type of flexible deal across their 800 locations. We sometimes have deals as low as 200 francs, where in the past, giving this type of deal attention would not work, right? Economically, it would not make sense. But if you can do it in a highly automated fashion, then suddenly it becomes worth it. And this is how we then also help to basically unlock new revenue streams. And I think for commercial real estate, just to open that bracket quickly, the reality is in many of these verticals, especially retail, not a lot of new properties have been built. So whoever owns these type of properties needs to monetize them better. You need to unlock more opportunities, and that's exactly what we help them with.
Okay, understood. And one more question which I have is, because you are in these traditional industries, how hard is it, because we often hear the war for talents. How hard is it for you, because you compete with the traditional employers to get the best talents, that they join you and that they have the right mindset, also an entrepreneurial mindset?
You want to go first? I'll happily go first. So for us, the competition is not necessarily coming from the commercial real estate industry in this case, when it comes to talents, but it's really from other B2B SaaS companies, software companies, deep tech companies to some extent. So that's our main competition. And I think there we really, yes, the entrepreneurial mindset, I guess, is super important. Obviously, in a startup, everyone wears many different hats. And ownership as a concept is not only related to shares or an ESOP, but it's really about, okay, I own my area and I'm fully responsible for that. So yeah, I think it's, especially in Switzerland, I guess, it's super difficult. I mean, I just attended a session before where someone said, we started with 12 employees. And I was like, okay, 12 employees in Switzerland, that's like 1 million Swiss francs payroll, at least. So how do you start with no investment? Since this session was about no investment necessary to bootstrap. But yeah, I think there is, in terms of attracting talent, it's really about making the opportunity and the impact we can have visible. I think just, again, taking Swiss Post, we've tripled the number of tenants that Swiss Post has in this business field within a year. And what is driving me personally a lot is to see, okay, all the businesses that we support in actually realizing their dreams, their projects, etc., by giving them access to these opportunities, to these spaces. And I think when someone understands that, that's where we can win versus, let's say, the big salary pots
So
that
the
are out
purpose,
there.
the purpose behind
Exactly,
the
and
idea.
the impact we can have. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, quite similar with us actually. I'm not so much focusing on the traditional insurance employees. We need people who can work. No, I rather focus on, because I also think it's a big value, additional value for the company if you go like outside your industry. So for example, with us, we have a lot of pet doctors and not traditional insurance experts. There are specific roles like actuarial science where you can't really substitute with other sectors, and those are really, really high salaries and rather risk-averse resources, so it's not easy to recruit those. So there we go rather for help outside, like external help from specific resources we need with that, and not hiring them. But besides that, I really think it's an additional value for a company if you have several sectors coming together. So as mentioned, from the pet health industry in our case. And also for key resources, we normally recruit within our network, in fact, to really, what you mentioned, make sure they have the right spirit and they really own the company. Of course, we give them shares, but that's just part. I think you have to pay a fair salary, otherwise it's not going to work. But it's always good if you know people before you work together with them, because in a startup, work is really, really different than within a big company. So you need to trust them, you need to know they're on the same page, and that works with within your network. And for like in general, for our team, we offer them like, besides a fair salary, which I think is important, they have flexibility regarding home office. In our case, they can bring their dogs, which they really like, which is not the case with other companies sometimes. So it's like also the small things, but you need to listen to the team. We often do like retrospectives where we ask what they like, what they need, what they wish for. And I think you need to adapt. We always try to bring new incentives that doesn't cost that much for the team, and that really works.
Do you see a change when the company is growing, that you have to offer them different things which they want, or is it always staying the same from the beginning until where you're at right now?
Yeah, good question. I think they ask for higher salaries when they see the company is growing.
Yeah, I guess that's one part. On the other hand, I guess it's also just from a culture perspective. I mean, for example, when you see sometimes on LinkedIn, hey, we took our whole team to Mallorca. I'm like, okay, that's quite a big price tag. But of course, at a certain size, especially if you have a distributed team, which we also have to some extent, these kind of things get more important. So, like, we haven't made any big splashes, don't worry. But just, I think these kind of things also are part then of the benefits that people expect. And I think that's then, especially when you're growing, you're like, okay, how much emphasis or priority to give these kind of things versus just hard bonus or whatever. But yeah, I think in terms of people with the right mindset, I think they will not necessarily expect totally different things. I think it's more the nuances that change slightly, since you will also have different roles, right? I mean, initially, when you're a small team, everyone has quite a wide field, and then, I mean, we're now also going through that, where I realized we need so much more structure in how we do things. Not that we were unstructured or so, but it's just you realize, okay, once you have more dedicated roles, just things need to be standardized, so it's scalable. Yeah. So yeah, I think these kind of things apply as well to recruiting and compensation, etc.
And Khalid, maybe next to Switzerland, you're also having a significant customer base in North America. How easy or not easy was it to gain access to that industry? And yeah, have you tips maybe for other startups?
I think the good thing for everyone interested, and obviously all of you are, I guess, in traditional industries, what I learned at least about commercial real estate is that the community is rather small. So I expected, for example, going from Switzerland to Germany or then to the US, that I'm dealing in the US with 30 times the size in terms of the decision makers, etc. It's not the case at all. I think compared to Switzerland, we're probably factor 5 or 6 in terms of the people who actually move this industry. And so attending industry events, getting intros, finding people who can multiply your outreach. So, I mean, that's one of our strategy, like strategic really go-to-market pillars is to have partners who just intro us to people, because that's still, again, in traditional industries is worth a lot. And so this is how we got our first, basically, exposure. And the other thing is obviously when you work with large organizations that manage, in our case, billions. I think the largest client we have has roughly $100 billion in assets. That's like 5 times, more or less, or 4.5 times the size of the biggest private real estate owner, like just to give an idea. And so these companies want totally reliable partners. So I think what you touched upon very early on is like to build trust, you need case studies, you need to have peers in the market who kind of vouch for you to just get a shot with some of these companies, because otherwise it's for them, basically a no-go. And the other thing I think that's important is if you have a solution that is also requiring change management in a traditional industry, then don't try to sell the full solution from the beginning. Like try to go step by step, sell them a module that they can get the first value. And then like you've built the trust, you build the rapport, and you go from there. Because I think change management in traditional industries is always a big challenge. Just because again, commercial real estate, they never really had to change, as I said before. So for them, this is really a big leap into the digital age.
Yeah. Do you have similar experiences with the leads? Maybe also already only in Switzerland, that when you get...
Absolutely. As you mentioned, traditional industries, they really work by word of mouth recommendations. So that's definitely really important, and there we really relied on our network, also on early investors from the industry. That really helps because they have a broad network themselves, and that's how you get into those deals. I think otherwise cold calls, no chance.
Yeah, it's exactly. I think attending an industry conference will give you much more, basically, compared to 5,000 cold calls.
Yeah. And with an insurance, it's something you want to spend as little time with as possible. So I think there it's important to get feedback from the customers and have a good customer journey. And how much do you put on that? Or how much time is in this part to maybe also for both of you? What is the percentage? How important is it?
I especially think for push products like insurance is, low interest products, easy, convenient customer journey is really important, but also a reliable one where you really can trust the people working there, which is, for example, also why we hire and employ a lot of veterinarians and former praxis assistants, so they really know pet health. And when people call, when customers have questions, it's about their pet is sick, which is really emotional, and they want to talk to someone who can rely, who can understand, and not just with some insurance call center employee who just wants to get it done fastly. And I think that's something that's really helping in trust and building trust and credibility. So for us, those touch points within the customer journey is really important, and also getting the feedback from the customers. So we started, as mentioned early on before market launch, with asking customers, asking pet owners, asking insurance customers what they like and what they don't like, and that's not nice. It's really hard work because they don't like a lot. So you have to get through that, and all the managers from insurance industry, or like maybe also within your industry, I don't know, companies, they say we're focusing on customers and customer centricity is really important, but they have never talked to a customer because it's not comfortable. They tell you what they don't like, and sometimes it's really like not nice to hear. But I think it's really, really important, especially for a startup. You have to know whether your product will launch or not. We see, especially within the insurtech field, we see many insurtechs, like insurance startups, launching getting funds, launching a huge platform, developing 2 years, a nice system, and then they fail because they see they don't get the products into the market, customers won't pay it, won't buy it, there is maybe not even customers. So I think it's really important to get in early stages to get the feedbacks from customers in the market, but also along the way to really often do surveys, ask people for example, NPS scores, but also try to test new offerings before you launch them. And I think that's really important to us. And also asking the customer to get reviews that we can push on Google, for example. So we actively ask for Google reviews after positive experiences, like paid out claims or so, because that also builds trust when they see on Google you have 5 stars. So really important to us.
Yeah, in our case, the client is, I mean, the tenants in this case are the clients of our clients, right? We work for Migros or Coop, and they then sell their inventory, space inventory, to their tenant base. And what we have, if I would have to summarize, what we have done so far is, I think, like many B2B SaaS companies, you do offer a big company normally a trial or a pilot, or we call it initial phase. We're obviously always aiming to get a full rollout across their full portfolio, but that's something that is good for both parties, even if initially it might be annoying because you're so convinced of your product and it's going to work, etc. But the reality is that it's not only about finding a scalable approach within that client organization, but also building the trust that they are then confident that you can actually scale it, right? So that's one thing. The other thing is that we very actively speak with our clients to develop and further develop the product. So I would say by now, more than half of the features in our product are really direct requests that in some cases were even sponsored by clients. I mean, they become part of the main product, but clients were able to put up the money. That shows you, okay, there's a real pain if the client is willing to pay for it. Because I think with large organizations also you have sometimes the situation that they're like, oh yeah, what you're offering is great, we'd love to try it, we don't have budget, sorry, but we'd love to try it. And as a startup, you invest so much time and dedication, and then nothing comes out of it because the person on the other side doesn't really have skin in the game. It's probably not such a pain from the beginning. So if they're not willing to put money in, then that's already a strong indicator. And yeah, so I think these would be, in terms of our business, B2B, would be the most important that I would highlight.
Okay. And now maybe also to tap into the discussion with funding. You both recently raised some funds, and on this regard, how do you organize the outreach to the investors, and how is this organized?
I think I see this as sales effectively. So this lives also in our CRM. We also tap our pre-sales team who does the research behind the leads we have on the landlord side. We also tap them for the investor side to basically get really a good understanding what's the focus of this investor, who I should best speak with, reach out to, etc. So really as structured as possible. And then I think also, again, in this case, like this event, attending certain events definitely helps, just to get direct access to people, and also an immediate feedback, right? If they're excited about it, you're like, okay, I can push more. If they're like totally leave me alone, that's also a valuable feedback.
Yeah, same here. Events, matchmaking, one-to-ones, pitch, wherever you can pitch. That's how I did it, and also through the network. So like especially early stages, early rounds we did with private investors, and then there you get to know one investor, or maybe you have a few through your network, and then they know a few other investors, and then they get you intro. So it's a big, broad network business to me. Especially it helped us with our early investors from the industry. We do have quite some investors from the insurance industry themselves, like former C-level managers from insurance companies, and of course they know everyone. They have a lot of investor friends. And actually, for example, we have one investor, he met one of our investors while he was skiing in the gondola, and then he was like, yeah, I'm just investing in a nice startup, it might be something for you as well, and then next week he invested as well. So that shows a bit. It is in the end, it's a people business, and you need to gain their trust and to be there, get a lot of calls or meetings where you can present yourself, where you can talk to the investors. That's how we tried it. But it's not easy.
Yeah, and what would you say were the biggest challenges, or where would you do something different looking back?
Yeah, I guess on one side we have a few great platforms now in Switzerland, like SIGTIC, for example, that I would do over and over and over if I would be in that situation at that stage. On the other hand, I guess it's similar to what I mentioned before about clients. You also need to understand, okay, where is the investor coming from? Are they just being nice, or is there real interest? And then, is this a warm intro, for example? I think these kind of things are so important. And so that's, for example, what I believe I underestimated, that really you have, I'm now making a controversial remark, maybe it's controversial, but 10% really are the decision makers and 90% follow. Basically, that's why we talk about lead and followers, right? Because I think that concept is really a reality, even if in the beginning as a greenhorn, you might not, you might be too optimistic, but that's a reality, and you need to identify those who are really moving things, and then that can really make a huge difference.
How can you identify them? What is?
Well, I think a lot tell you clearly what their preference is. So I think that's one thing, and then of course also seeing how, where else have they invested, and I think these kind of things, which also to some extent is like homework, to just have a good understanding of, okay, is what we're doing relevant for this investor, right? In terms of their focus.
Yeah, this was actually from my side the last topic, and I would like to open, if you have further questions, please feel free.
Thank you. So, thank you for the presentation, and congratulations for your startups. Currently, I'm going through quite a key question relative to compensation. For the next round, should I set aside a few stock options and set an ESOP? Is it something you've considered, and what percentage did you set?
Yes, we did that, and also investors ask for it normally. So to have a few shares on the side on the cap table already reserved for existing, but also new key hires.
Yeah, same here. We also had in the first round 10%, and then again,
Same.
I think a lot of it's become standard kind of now. That it's in most term sheets. That's an important part for the investor.
But it won't compensate for a salary. It's an add-on.
You have to sell it differently.
Maybe.
No, but of course, especially again, we're based in Zurich now. Living costs are high, and it's just even if there is a very good chance for a liquidity event, I think people still need to live, and they have their expenses, etc. So it can be a great incentive, but I guess doesn't compensate for basic needs.
Good people cost salary. Otherwise, that's not possible.
I have a question regarding your business model. Have you traditional competitions catching up to you and try to copy you, or are they saying, no, I'm happy to buy this product and not do it myself?
We get crawled. Whenever we launch a new feature, there is only few competitors, thank God, but they try to copy us, yes. Also, when I'm presenting at investor events, and I see someone in the audience from our competitors, and I have a few numbers on the slides. I see them taking pictures, and then I'm clicking further so they can't take pictures, because it's a small world. They try to copy.
I'm going to sign up for pet insurance, but
awesome.
My question is, I come from the development or software development part, and I think it's really difficult to build a product that scales and is solid. So I think you you have your own software company, as I understood. But did you have problems finding the right partner, or?
That is a really good point. We discussed it in the beginning heavily, and we decided to go for like non-customer facing and non-crucial development, like a back office system for just administrating the claims and the policies, for a licensed software solution where we work together with vendors. But everything else, like middleware, front-end, customer-facing, or automation, so our key also differentiators and key features we develop in-house. And it is not easy to find a good vendor on that side, because they're used to big insurance companies and they pay a lot of money, which we, as a startup, can't, obviously. So that's not always too easy. But now we have found one, and you don't have to change that every year, so that's okay then.
And did you, when you develop in-house, have someone who had experience developing software as a service? Or because you need someone to trust to implement the right processes, to hire the right hires, and so on and so forth?
Yeah, right early on we hired a CTO, and we knew him from university, so he was a friend of ours. And he was quite experienced with cybersecurity, which is helpful for insurance, and also architecture in general. But he did not have any experience with insurance, for example. But you don't need that. You can learn that quite quickly. It's the understanding and the mindset and the overall architectural experience is, in my eyes, more important. But it's not easy to find those people.
Thank you.
When I first have seen some pitch decks of yours, I was not sure if it is a case for us as an investor. we did discuss that as well, because it's a traditional business, and for us it's really tricky to see if you can, as mentioned before, can make the race and win against the competitors, and you are not really, it's not possible to have any IP or secure yourself. How do you approach new investors? I mean, now you have traction, it's easier to show new investors that you will survive, but how did you do that in the beginning?
Yeah, that's a good point. Now it's easier because we have traction, and also we have our potential competitors not being competitors anymore, but partners. So we could prove that it's not, or they won't do it themselves, the incumbents, and rather work with us. So that's, of course, a really important proof that they're not competitors. Instead, they're partners and leveraging and scaling our business, which is, of course, nice. But in the beginning, of course, that we had to really explain well, especially to non-insurance investors. Insurance investors or investors from the financial industry, and there is a lot of them, obviously, they really understood quite easily that incumbents won't be able to do it themselves, and there is a big potential for modernization, and they knew it has to be startups doing it. So I didn't have to explain that. But for non-financial sector investors, that was a hard explain, definitely. And I think I lost some of those because they didn't trust the industry to be like flexible enough to incorporate startups into the ecosystem.
Yeah, I think in our case, it's really those investors who've started investing in PropTech, like property technology. Some of them started back in 2015, 2016, which was very early. And then they realized, this industry is rather slow in adopting. And I mean, that's why I observed this, like we didn't talk about this, but I observed this market as one of the ideas to pursue for 15 years before I decided now is the right time. Because I also learned that, okay, like if you don't have the right timing, if you don't see that this is a real pain, like you might have the best product and the best pitch to investors, etc., it might not work out. And I mean, we're still young companies now, but I think once like once you can say you have an organization like Swiss Post or Migros, or you're covering 50% of all shopping centers in Switzerland, that's where then people see, okay, there is scale in this. And then, of course, the internationalization is then the next big step. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you very much. If there
Thank
are
you.
no further questions, I think we can give them a big applause. Thank you very much for being here.
Thank
And
you so
they're
much.
open for questions,
Yes,
I
of
guess.
course.
Please.
Thanks a lot.